Hi, everybody, and welcome to Dawncast Episode 3. My name is PJaKeH, here with my buddies Mark
What's up?
and Azaraki.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really well for me. I just went and picked up my kids from school and ready to talk about some Dawngate. So, Dawncast here is brought to you again by DwnSource.com. Go ahead and go there and check out some really cool articles, guides. Write yourself a guide. Let's talk on the forums. Get to know us in game. Feel free to add us. Our IGNs are right there on the video. Braun's not with us this week. He was off at PAX this last week getting some really cool video content that you can check out on the site starting probably late this coming up week after he edits it and puts it all together. So feel free to check that out. And again, add us in game when the servers are live, which did they announce today that Thursdays are going to be from now on, Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Well, I didn't know if it was from now on, but I know they announced it this week, just like an hour ago. That's going to be on this Thursday. So, yeah.
Dawngate.
Yes, yeah,
More Dawngate.
More Dawngate, more Dawngate. So let's get right into it. Today we're going to talk about Renzo, we're going to talk about Fenmore, and we're going to talk about Dawngate as a competitive esport. So those are our topics for today. Let's start out by talking about Renzo. He was revealed last week. Did both of you guys get a chance to get your hands on Renzo? I know I did.
Oh yeah.
Hands on Renzo. I don't know, man. That sounds wrong right there with his personality. But, yeah, I actually think he's I like to play support, and he's fun as hell. So, I know, Arizaki, you like to play jungler, and I think you played jungler Renzo too, right?
Yeah, I played actually quite a few games with Jungle Renzo, and I have to say his clear speed is horrible. He has no big AoE spells, so he has no clear of the jungle, and past that, his Q doesn't really do too much damage. But the big pluses about him as a jungler is that he doesn't really die or take damage from jungle camps. You have a shield and a heal, and you're also Renzo, so you get extra armor as well. And on top of that, your ganks are pretty good if your teammates can follow up on you landing your stun, which is a targeted stun, so you don't even have to aim it. It's not a skill shot or anything.
What's the cooldown on the stun roughly early game?
I think it's 10 seconds. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around there, I think.
So it's enough to where you can actually use it for damage in the jungle, and by the time you get to the lane, it's back up, ready to go.
Sometimes. I usually stay away from that. It doesn't really give you that much damage in the first place, and you never really know when the enemy jungler is going to gank you, and you might need something to stop him from chasing you.
I played one game of Jungle Renzo. Yeah, that clear speed is way too slow for me to compete with people like Volek or Moya. Like, I just think it's way too slow. His ganking is just godlike, but at the same time too, like, Reyna clears jungle way faster than he does, and also ganks like a beast at level 6. So for me, like I don't really like it. But Mark, you played him in lane a bunch, right? What do you think about him in lane?
I think he's actually pretty amazing in lane, because the fact is that you have this single targeted stun that if you build up his inspiration, early game that armor debuff does so well for ganks. And I think he's actually really great if you want to play a very highly aggressive lane to shut down or at least deny their enemy gladiator, or as a complement for your jungler. Like, for example, I don't think a player who's going to play Moya or Volek is going to complain about Renzo being on the field, because that guy could just stun on demand whenever he feels like it. And the fact that you also have the shield makes him really good for the lane partner, because the lane partner could easily harass. Like, I think I played one game where it was me and Freya, and I just kept shielding Freya, stunned the target, and Freya just wailed away. We just kept doing it over and over again. We were just dominating the lane at that point. So I could see a lot of potential in him, especially with future compositions. I know that there was actually some people saying that he feels a little bit too weak, but I think it's a little too early to judge, and I think a lot of his strength has to be revolved around his inspiration, which I noticed a lot of Renzo players didn't really take advantage of that during the weekend. But like I said, it's, 3 days, so we barely even know the guy yet.
Yeah, I really liked him in lane. The stun for any, like, if you have a Volek in jungle who does not have hard CC, and he comes into lane and you're able to get a stun on an 80 carry or a marksman or whatever we call him, they're dead. Like they're just done. They're not getting away. Yeah, the inspiration use is going to get much better. I think like his Q, if you can get in there and you can get damage on the Q on a range shaper, is hard. But if you can get in there, it can do some pretty good damage. And the shield, yeah, the shield cannot be like scoffed at. It's pretty good. I like it. Overall, he's good. The ultimate, like for me, am I wrong in saying that his sculpture is not actually impassable terrain? I saw people like walk through it or like knock it down, or like if they touched it after they got knocked up, it kind of crumbled. Or am I mistaken in that? Is it actually impassable terrain?
You know what? I really don't know.
Neither do I.
Like I think it'd be awesome if that sculpture like stayed up for like 3 or 4 seconds as impassable terrain, because like when the couple times that I used it as like a disengage, it seemed like if they got knocked up that they were able to walk through it or crumble the statue. And if that's the case, if it's not impassable terrain, then it's not quite as good of a peel as I thought it was going to be. Like on last week's show when we were talking how it's, for me, I think it should be the exact opposite of a Reyna ult, where Reyna, her ult goes into initiate, where Renzo is in the middle of a fight when someone's diving on, you can disengage, or you can use it to trap people in, which I don't think, if it's not impassable, then it's not quite as good as it could be as a peel or as a chasing mechanism. So just my thoughts on the ultimate.
To
Still
me,
awesome,
to me, I wouldn't be a fan of the idea, but not just because of the competitive sake. I mean, for competitive, it sounds great, but I have a feeling if it was like stuck there for a few seconds, I could just see a potential for abuse by toxic players. So, and I don't think Dawngate wants to go in that direction where players could just totally screw up the game for everybody by picking this one character to grieve everyone else. So that's my argument against it.
Well, like it matters how long the duration is, right? If it's like 3 seconds, it's not like that big of an issue, but 3 seconds makes a huge difference when it comes to trying to wall a team off, you know. But if somebody wants to use it to try to troll their team, people are going to use everything to troll their team. They're just going to feed or you know, pick Jungle Zeri or something like that, you know.
Jungle dibs is a thing.
Jungle dibs, Jungle dibs has got to be a thing. I mean, let's take a quick second. Would Zeri be the worst jungler?
Maybe.
Maybe, probably.
Makes me sad. As a guy who likes to play jungle too and who likes Zeri, that makes me sad. Okay, any other thoughts on Renzo? I like him. I think he's sweet. Very viable.
Yeah, Renzo's really cool.
Does his nipples cut glass? That's just the.
Yeah, he says
we could spend 20. So. And he's a friend of children.
Renzo.
He's a friend.
Oh my god.
Does he
that
have
guy.
Like? Now it is tough to say this, right? But is his personality? Is there anyone that comes even close personality-wise in a MOBA game? I know League players are big about Draven. I understand that. But like friggin' Renzo, dude, this guy has got character and charisma coming out the wazoo.
Yeah, I think Draven and Renzo, they're two sort of different spectrums of that sort of personality type, whereas where Draven is basically I'm the best, I'm better than you, this is my league. And where Renzo's like, I'm beautiful, I am the most beautiful thing ever. And he's got a different style of that big arrogance that we all know and love from these MOBAs. So, you know, I don't think he's necessarily equivalent to Draven in that respect, but he's Dawngate's character who's meant to be that big, overpronounced, arrogant dude.
And speaks in third person.
So.
Yep.
Third person is always good. It's always good. I think we should try that one day. No, I think it'd be terrible. It'd be terrible. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Fenmore, because there was some discussion about Fenmore on the subreddit about him being OP, and so I don't know how my titles got messed up when you guys are watching this on the YouTube. My titles got messed up. But Fenmore OP, yay or nay? What do you guys think?
All right, I'm trying to find the thread right here, but
I think it might have got deleted or downvoted to oblivion, but it was up there for a little bit.
Well, it was actually a daily discussion, so it should still be there. Yeah, here we go. I found it. So it was a daily discussion, 2nd of September, and it was the post itself wasn't Fenmore's OP, but it was like, all right, we're now going to just talk today about Fenmore for our daily discussion, and obviously the comments on that thread, most of them went straight towards he's OP. Where I don't really think he's OP. He is a little bit strong. I'll give you that much, but I wouldn't say he's overpowered.
And why? Why?
All right, so and for the most part, everyone knows, well, should know by now, especially with Marky's articles, is that pain is something that you can really build to get rid of Fenmore's lifesteal, or life drain, and that's really good against his E and his ultimate. The thing that makes him strong, if you're a good Fenmore player, then you're not going to be using your entire kit. You're not going to be focusing around getting lifesteal when you have a really strong shield as well. And that's one of my biggest points about Fenmore, is that even if you build Pain, that doesn't necessarily change how much shield you get from your Q ability. So if you can manage that correctly, it has a very short cooldown, and you can still win fights really well with that. So that's sort of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, Mark, you play a lot of Fenmore, don't you?
A bit. I kind of agree with Azaraki. The thing is, you got to remember, if we look at, was it? I forgot the name of the ability where you throw the wolf and get it back to for the health. I think.
Heart Eater.
Well, anyways.
Heart Eater.
Yeah, Heart Eater. You only get, I think, from what I understand, 10% lifesteal, right? Which is basically a tier 2. Life drain. A tier 2 life drain item. Which is fine. I mean, you get it for free because it's part of your build. But really, I think if you reduce that by half, again, as Zaki mentioned, it's the Ren's soul, his Q, the one that gives a shield, is probably the biggest issue with him, because once he pops that up, it's like, sometimes I've seen situations where it nearly like doubles, not want to say double his health, but a good chunk of his health is just right there, and you can't get through it. I think that's where most of the complaints come from. I wouldn't be surprised to see that slightly tweaked, but I don't think he is ridiculously OP as a lot of people think he is. I mean, we are talking about a character that doesn't even have any hard escapes and has, like, one movement speed buff and one way to get out of a route. He can be easily outmaneuvered, let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I've never played Fenmore, so I'm leaving this up to you guys. But the movement speed boost and cleanses, slows, and routes, that's your 1 point wonder, right? Is that correct? Is that your 1 point?
For me, it is.
Mark,
yeah.
Is that for you too?
Yeah.
And then you
pretty much.
Do you max Q first, right? The soul rend.
Mm-hmm.
I do. Yep.
Okay, so
unless you're 2v1ing.
Okay, so soul rend. If you're not familiar, soul rend at level 5. So at level 9, if you're maxing it first, it's a 5-second cooldown. You're doing 265 plus 1 power magical damage, and then if you pick up the shield, it's 170 plus 1 per point of power damage that lasts 3 seconds. So you have a 3-second shield with a 1.0 power ratio on a 5-second cooldown. Yeah, that sounds a little strong to me. What's the counterplay to that?
For his Q,
For the Q.
there isn't really too much of a direct counterplay for it. If there's any sort of counterplay, it's going to have to be CC, and that's really one of the big things that I can see that can still beat Fenmore. If you can lock him down, then he can't use any of his abilities. He can't get his health back, he can't get his shield, he can't do any of that. So if you can lock him down and kill him fast enough, then just burst him down, then you might be able to just take him out of the fight straight off, and he can't really do anything. That's the biggest counter I see to him. But obviously, even if you can't do this, it's not Fenmore wins. You still have to play him really well and manage the shield. You can get Pain, and that really, really helps out. It basically makes it so that he can't just run into a team fight with his ultimate Ravenous Pack and stay alive the entire time. So you have to. It requires a little bit more micromanagement. So those are some things that I could see that you could do against Fenmore, but mostly just CC is his bane.
Yeah. The other thing is if you notice, if you take a look at his kit, a lot of his stuff requires him to be in a awkward position. Like, for example, if you want to get the Heart Eater Wolf, you have to be. It even tells you specifically where it ends, so you actually have to be in the line of the wolf to come back to you to catch it. So that makes him somewhat immobile. And if you're looking at the Rend Soul, or Soul Rend, you have to approach closer to the enemy to grab that shield. So it's not like he's given free range of movement. In fact, a lot of his movement, it will be very predictable. So it's not like he can't just dodge all these skill shots and everything out of the way. If he wants to use his abilities, he has to be sometimes in a bad position to take advantage of them.
So the issue then is when he uses his Soul Rend, when he uses his Heart Eater, you have to punish him for it, or else you are going to get steamrolled, right?
Pretty much. I mean, if you throw a Heart Eater, right, you know it's going to go straight back to him. He has to be in that position to grab it, otherwise it's a waste. And if you look at if you look at his Q, he has to move closer to you to grab that shield. So he's basically, if a careless Fenmore player will constantly spam these abilities and put himself in a position that may not be very helpful to him. Now, that being said, I'm talking this from a team fight perspective. In lane, you could just use Q on a minion creep and boom, there's your shield. Now you could start harassing the enemy. And I've seen a lot of players do that. So, I mean, it's not foolproof, but what I'm just basically saying is Fenmore's movements are very, very predictable because of the way his kit is designed. And, if you're really good with skill shots, especially with characters like Desecrator, you should be able to take advantage of that easily. I mean, he's still a pain in the butt to face, and I can see why there's frustration with a lot of players. But it's not like he cannot be countered. There are plenty of ways to make Fenmore's day hell.
Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, looking at Fenmore, if you're going to pair him with a tactician and you're going to let him farm, who do you want to pair him with? And if you're in champ select, or if you're in the in game and you see a Fenmore on the other team, who do you want running up against Fenmore on your team?
Well, it'll probably be either Kel or Desecrator. Those are pretty much a must because Kel has the mobility to get into position and basically slow and silence and spin, knock him up. And Desecrator has we all know Desecrator. He has like one of the best pokes in the game, constantly long range, a lot of ways to cut areas off from Fenmore. And like those two characters I would use. Another one would probably be Dibs. Well, Dibs works on everybody, basically. If you could get those
Dibs.
Nightmare...
Get Dibs out of here. What are you talking about? Get him out of here. Don't go talking Dibs on this cast. Get out of here. I'm just joking.
If you guys didn't see last week, Dibs is Jake's Teemo, basically.
Get out of here, Dibs. No, go ahead. Why? Okay, so why is Dibs good in all situations? Against Fenmore or with Fenmore, why?
His poke is really amazing with it, especially with the Nightmare. And with certain characters, Dibs' Nightmare debuff could just be so useful with certain shapers, like, say, Kindra, for example, or even Renzo could be really good with Dibs, although I wouldn't really put them in a lane. But the point is that if you basically want to keep pushing Fenmore out of the lane, and it's very easy to do that because anything Fenmore does, you know that he's going to have to stay in certain spots to do so. And you just need characters that take advantage of, I wouldn't say stationary targets, but targets that simply have very predictable movement. I mean, I'm just speaking as more of a first-person shooter guy because it's the same thing. You don't aim where you don't aim where the shaper's at. You aim at where the shaper is going to go. And the problem with Fenmore's kit is, a lot of his stuff is very predictable most of the time.
Azaraki, what do you think about going against Fenmore or supporting Fenmore in lane?
Supporting Fenmore in lane, I agree with Dibs. And actually, for I want to say a tentative team right now because we haven't actually been able to get all of us together at one place to actually participate in a tournament or anything. But when we can pair up, 3 or 4 of us at a time, then Hawkeye and Braun, as someone who, as you said, can't be here right now, but they really like to run Fenmore dibs, and you can either get a ton of poke down and just zone them out of the game, or you could even potentially just bait them into killing them with Fenmore's kit. He can get a movement speed buff on his W, so if they overextend with really low health, since you've already been poking them down, it's not that hard to finish off the kill because Dibs has a slow, and on top of that, Fenmore also has a speed buff. So Fenmore Dibs, obviously a very good lane. To go against Fenmore, I would agree with Marky right there. Kel, the thing about one of the big things about Kel, yeah, he can get close, but two of his CC, his ultimate and his crook sweep, which is his knockup, are things that Fenmore can't actually cleanse with his W. So even though the battle cry, Fenmore can get out of it, he can't get out of a knockup, and he can't get out of a stun. And sort of the same thing goes with Desecrator, where Desecrator has a silence, and he also has a knockup on top of his snare. Now, Fenmore can get out of the snare, but probably not the knockup or the silence. So those are two very more reliable forms of CC to pit up against Fenmore. So I like those two laners as well.
Well, yeah, and if he cleanses the snare and you get the knockup, then you can get the slow, and then he can't get out of the slow. So, if Fenmore's playing safely against Desecrator, he can do fine. But Desecrator's just got way too much CC, unless the Desecrator's stacking it very poorly, right?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about Fenmore? Like I said, I haven't played him. I've played with Mark on Fenmore. I like him, but I don't have any firsthand experience on him. So, any other thoughts from you guys?
Not really.
Get luck and faith.
Get luck and faith.
There you go. Get that. That definitely would counter Fenmore as well. I mean, it's not just pain. There are a lot of defensive items that totally screw up magic-based shapers, and luck and faith are probably some of the two strongest ways to mitigate any sort of magical damage. I mean, it doesn't work just on Fenmore, but characters like was it Kindra? Works great on Kindra as well. I mean, this is the other thing I notice. A lot of these people who complain, I highly doubt that they look at other defensive options, because there's one thing I've learned very quickly is Waystone has provided lots of ways to counter certain builds very harshly with some of these defensive items.
Yeah. Yep. Any last thoughts on Fenmore Azaraki?
Not really. Basically everything's already been said. And to recap, I mean, just pain isn't the only answer, and it shouldn't be thought of as, okay, I have pain, Fenmore's useless now, because a good Fenmore player can outplay that. You really need to take advantage of his positioning as well. So that's something that you have to keep in mind when you're playing against Fenmore. Outside of that, yeah, I think we've hit about every topic that we can about Fenmore.
All right, so then let's move on to our last topic. We're going to be talking about Dawngate as a competitive esport. Now, not being able to have Braun on, maybe we could touch on this another time. But Azaraki, I know that you have done a lot of work in the League of Legends esports scene. What are your thoughts about this game competitively? What do you think? Can you start us off?
Yeah, we'll definitely have to revisit this later when we have Braun, and I can touch on it a little bit, but I do want to save sort of the main, the big conversation until we're here with him. But from what I'm seeing so far, if I had to say one thing about it, it would just be don't rush the competitive scene. And the reason for that, if you put too much into your competitive scene and suddenly everything crashes, people don't like your game as a competitive game, you're not going to get anyone to play your competitive scene. And you've already put in, money towards prize pooling. You've put in money towards a spectator mode. You've put in money towards so many different features that allow for a competitive scene, but if the competitive scene doesn't take off, then where does that money go? You just sort of lost it right there, and you sort of forget about your game. So you do have to take it slowly, and Waystone is doing a really good job of that.
Okay. Mark, what about you?
I never really got too much into the esports scene, I'll be honest, but I did come from another MOBA called Smite. and they were really pushing the whole esports thing way before even the game was close to being finished. And I think the results of that were, well, probably going to piss off a few Smite players. The competitive scene is just pretty much stagnant right now. Like, we're seeing the same players over and over again, the same rosters, the same, well, I wouldn't say same lineups, but the thing is, the high-res games really try to push the whole esports thing. And I think they even offer some like $100,000 thing before they were even out in launch. And because of that, they were way too focused on it as opposed to making their game work properly. So I sort of like what Waystone is doing, which is basically setting the concrete foundations and then have a so-called esports scene on top of it. Because really, if you don't have good mechanics or good balance or anything like that, it doesn't matter how much money you throw into it, it will eventually die out because, again, nobody really likes playing bad games. I mean, League of Legends is a good game for what it does. Dota 2 is a very good game at what it does. And if we look at the fighting scene, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, they do what they're good. But they were focused on mechanics first more than anything else. And I'm glad that Waystone is more focused on making the game work right and play right instead of just shoving, asking EA to host down a $250,000 tournament or some such nonsense like that.
Yeah, and I think from watching the streams, especially very, very early in closed beta, that was like expressly their idea of, we want to make a good, fun game that people like playing, that feels and like mechanically is as balanced as we can get it, and then that stuff will happen. Whether it's from the subreddit putting together a tournament, or places like DwnSource putting together a tournament, or anyone that wants to put together stuff, let it come naturally. But the idea is if people aren't playing the game, no one's going to give two craps about the competitive scene. If the game's not fun, no one's going to watch it. If the game's not fun, no one's going to play it. And if they want to build it up as an esport, that'll be a good thing. But that's not going to make Waystone a successful studio. Is if people are playing it competitively. If they want people to play the game, and then they'll go from there, and it'll happen. I mean, League of Legends had 40, or probably I think the WCG, the first WCG in 2009, they had 45 champions out at that time, something like that. Right now we have 16 shapers, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're so early, so it's good for us to talk about. So maybe when we get Braun on, I think one of the discussions that we should have is what makes a game a quality esport. Like what are the elements that make a game good at esports? I mean, because right now, we can say, it'll work, but if there's nobody playing the game, it's not going to be a good esport because no one's going to watch it, and the mechanical skill of the players involved is going to be really bad. So, but we'll see where things go. Any final thoughts from you guys before we end this episode?
Well, there is one other thing that I saw on the subreddit a little bit, and generally that's where we get most of our topics from, but a lot of people are still sort of complaining about how there's no deny mechanic in Dawngate, and I've seen plenty of Waystone streams, and they have just completely flat out said, we don't want a deny mechanic in our game because we don't think it's that much fun, and we provide alternative ways to play with the economy, which I think is cool. If you look at some track record of MOBA games, I think Dota's really the only successful one right now that actually has a deny feature. So, what do you guys think about denying? Do you think it's not a fun mechanic, or where do you guys stand on it?
For me, I remember playing Deny Plank in League of Legends, and it was fun for me, but it was just if the game is not fun for everyone involved, if there's no counterplay to a specific idea, then it's not fun. The deny mechanic in Dota, I think it works. I think it works for its purposes. It fits with the context of that game. Dota is a punishing, very difficult game, and takes a lot of skill, and that is a good thing. League of Legends, it is not a hardcore game. Deny, it does not function in that game. Can you imagine League of Legends if let's say you're one of those people who picks up a Smurf and they've been playing the game for a year, and they go in, they're playing against people who don't know how to play, and they go in and they're actually denying because the people on the other team don't even know how to last hit at all. That game absolutely snowballs out of ridiculous control. It's just not fun. And there's no counterplay to it in that game. In Dota, when you go in and you play a game of Dota, you know that it's balls to the wall. You got to work your tail off or else you're going to get snowballed. Everyone understands that. That's the type of game that is, and it's okay. And in Dawngate, the denial mechanics that they have, whether it's denying a gladiator their stacks, harassing spirit wells, controlling spirit wells, and then counter jungling as well, like that, those are good mechanics, and it fits well for this game. I like it a lot.
So I absolutely hate denial as a mechanic. All right, so it's one of the big reasons why I don't play Dota 2. Now, that being said, the reason why it works in Dota 2 is because the game was designed around it.
Yeah.
And when I see players complaining about there's no denial in Dawngate, they're not really understanding what was the point of the denial mechanic in the first place in Dota 2. In Dota 2, it wasn't just denying farm. What you're basically doing was having a tug of war with the enemy team to fight for a favorable spot to, well, farm and get last hits. And so basically it was just going back and forth and fighting for that, specific area in the lane. And plus you're basically fighting for positioning. If you look at Dawngate, you're not really fighting for positioning on the lane. You're really fighting for is to have control of the middle lane, so you have the pathways for the jungles or the parasite. That's what you're really aiming for. And a denial mechanic doesn't really help benefit really that situation. And besides, if you're talking about denying someone's farm, well, we are looking at Dawngate where there is no mana, so that means you can keep spamming your abilities to zone out the enemy team. Plus there is also the spirit well, so you could harass the team, you could harass their wells, you could take it to get the passive Vim. Again, that's another form of denial. And plus there's also the stacking of the gladiator role. There's another form of denial. Get cut off the creep stacking to get that extra bonus. Another form of denial. How do I say it? Dawngate makes it a little bit more interesting, whereas I find it way too mechanical and dry in Dota 2. And like I said, it works fine with it. I watch the Dota International. It's a great thing to watch, but if you ask me to play it, that's just not. I don't like it whatsoever.
Well, and I know too. Like when I was going through it, and a couple days ago, or this last weekend, we were playing all together, and I was laning with MaryXx, and he was playing, and he was sitting there on Gladiator, and I was just pressuring lane. He was farming away, and he's like, "Holy smokes! I'm at 14 stacks, 15 stacks of Gladiator," and he was like, 15, like just up there the whole time, like getting up to 8, 9, 10 stacks on Gladiator constantly. And that game just absolutely steamrolled because we were able to deny the Gladiator a ton of Vim because he was not able to get his stacks up whereas MaryXx was. And that is a great counterplay. Like, you have to have presence in lane. You have to control your map. You can't let people get free spirit wells. You can't let people get free parasites. You have to use your wards. You have to invade. You have to put pressure. You have to harass. If you're not doing these things, you're going to lose. Like, you're just flat out going to lose. And that's not because there's a mechanic in the game that is punishing you like a denial or gold loss on death or stuff like that a lot of Dota 2 players really like, and good for them. But in this game here, there are lots and lots of other forms of denial that actually have good counterplay that make it interesting.
Yeah, I watched the international as well, and a lot of people do accuse me, since I do come from a League of Legends background where I shoutcast, where you're really biased towards League of Legends. Well, I just love all esports. Yeah. That is how I am as a person. I watch LCS for League. I watch the International for Dota. I watch WCS for StarCraft. And right now, CSGO is starting to pick back up a little bit. I've been watching ESWC. I've been watching all of that stuff. I really love all esports. And, one of the things that I also think Marky was talking about, where he said in Dota, you actually get lane position out of denying. You're sort of making it so that your lane pushes a little bit less than their lane does by making sure you even that out. And another reason that works is because Dota's lanes are much longer.
Yeah.
Between two turrets, there is a gigantic amount of space in Dota, and you just don't see that in Dawngate. Whereas Dawngate, they're pretty close together. Actually, they're really close together.
Really close, yeah.
Yeah, and it just doesn't allow you to sort of have that back and forth lane position counterplay. Whereas Marky said, your lane control is zoning them, making sure that they don't get gladiator stacks, and controlling the pathways to Parasite as well as the top or bottom side jungle, whichever lane you're in.
Yeah. The other thing I also want to make a point is, we are seeing a ton of like MOBA games out there, and MOBA is starting to become like basically it's a genre of its own. And it's kind of annoying. I'll be honest. It's really annoying to hear players say, well, this game should have denial just because Dota 2 had denial. This kind of reminds me back of like the late 90s, early 2000, when first-person shooters were like the big thing for PC gamers. Like everybody and their mother want to be like the next Counter-Strike or the next Quake, and we saw a huge influx of first-person shooters. And now we're seeing sort of the same thing with MOBA, where everybody wants to be the next MOBA. But when you think about it, having forcing every game to have a denial just might not work. They are different, just like a first-person shooter genre has different interpretations of it. MOBA is going to have different interpretations, and Waystone has certainly come up with a very interesting idea. That's why we're here, of how they interpret the MOBA genre. So I just find it kind of short-sighted that, if this doesn't have a Dota 2 mechanic, it's going to fail, blah, blah, blah. Like, Dota 2 is already there. Go play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go play Dota 2, go play League of Legends. If you're in the closed beta Infinite Crisis, go play that. Definitely play Dawngate. Like, these are all fun games. They all have their own merits. They all have their own, trappings and difficulties. Play them all, and what works for you works for you. If you are watching this podcast and you don't, and you find yourself not liking Dawngate, there's another game out there for you. Or if you haven't played it yet and you're learning here, or you're listening to us and you're waiting for your beta key, get excited. It's a good game. If you want to take a break, go play Hearthstone, or go play CS:GO, or go play one of these other games. They are all great, and they all have their own merits. And to say that one game has to do something because something else does, it's counterproductive, and it's not going to be helpful to us as a culture trying to create good games that expand our communities so we can have fun, get to know people, and build something good. And Waystone is doing a great job at that. I really like this game. I'm looking forward to see where they're taking it in the future, and having more opportunities to get them on the show here, or to go see them at their studios and to meet them. I know I'm looking forward to seeing the stuff that Braun put together at PAX. Being a guy who was originally from Seattle, who never got a chance to go to PAX, I'm looking forward to seeing what he was able to come up with, because there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in video games right now, and there's no reason to get upset because your game is losing steam. Unless you're a Heroes of Newerth fan and your game is like completely toast.
They are
fired. Shots fired.
Well, okay, it's not shots fired when it's the truth. Everybody knows that game is like, people have stopped playing that game because everyone's playing Dota 2, and that's fine. But if you want to go play Heroes of Newerth, go play Heroes of Newerth. It's a perfectly great game.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also
and
Strife.
with the whole
Smite. Yeah, go play Smite too. Go play Smite.
Yeah, and with the whole, you can't make a good MOBA without denial, or every MOBA needs denial. That's sort of, if we were to go back to first-person shooters that Marky was saying, say in Counter-Strike, every FPS from now on needs to have a system where you buy guns at the beginning of a round, or something like that. I don't want to say each first-person shooter needs the bomb play type, because that's more like, okay, there's a Dominion map, there's a Crystal Scar, or that is a Crystal Scar, but Summoner's Rift, those sort of maps. But, these sort of mechanics where, okay, so every game from now on in the FPS needs to give you money for kills and have that extra economy system, where that's just, short-sighted. And even Black Ops is becoming more popular now, and it doesn't have that sort of big thing, even in Search and Destroy, which is the game mode that's most similar to Counter-Strike, where you plant a bomb, you only have one life, and there are 2 bomb sites, stuff like that. You still don't have the whole economy system that Counter-Strike does. So, you can make games without making them the exact same as the previous forerunners of their type.
Like as my last word, I do have to say, if you are going to make a first-person shooter game, though, there is one thing that you have to have, and that's funny hats. Gotta have funny
God.
We don't. No. Nope.
I don't stand with you on that. I have to say.
I know. I'm just joking. Anyways, so we're gonna wrap up here. Any last words from you guys? Any thoughts on this coming up weekend? Anything you're excited to play, or any last words?
What happens in TF2 stays in TF2.
Marky?
I don't know. I have no words.
All right. Well, make sure you go read Marky's article on the Jungler POV. Go check that out. It's a good article. Mark, you write some good stuff. Make sure you check out the materials that we have over at DwnSource.com. Go check out the subreddit. Go subscribe to the subreddit. Like and subscribe to the video and the channel here. And we'll see you guys next week on episode 4 of the Dawncast. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.